Jimmy Kimmel, they're trying to cancel Jimmy Kimmel. I'm sure you've heard the news by now, but I've been going through the internet looking for the clips to see what they're mad or upset about.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel has not been canceled. He's been indefinitely suspended, so let's get that out of the way. Now, I'm sure you have heard the news that Jimmy Kimmel, he is off the air because of some of the remarks he made about the Charlie Kirk situation.
He has a right to do so, but he does not have a right to have a television show where he lies his ass off to the American people and attacks half this country on a nightly basis.
Now, what's interesting about the Jimmy Kimmel situation, out of all of the professors, airline pilots, city council members, out of everyone who has lost their jobs, Jimmy Kimmel seems to be the one where there is the most outrage. So we're going to dig into all of this within this video and actually go over what he said and did. Now, before we start the video, make sure to please like the video. It's the #1 way you guys are helping this channel, but it also helps others see the videos as well, and I think people want to see what's going on with the Jimmy Kimmel situation.
Jimmy Kimmel, they're trying to cancel Jimmy Kimmel. I'm sure you've heard the news by now, but I've been going through the internet looking for the clips to see what they're mad or upset about.
When you see that Jimmy Kimmel is gone because of that, does that even hit harder home to you?
Look, I'm honestly, this is very concerning. I think, first, Jimmy Kimmel is a late night host. He's a comedian. We have the First Amendment in this country. Folks have the right to say what's on their minds, and certainly in a monologue on a late night show.
Okay, so what exactly did Jimmy Kimmel say? And the irony behind all of this, I can't even play you guys the Jimmy Kimmel clip because I will get demonetized and get into trouble for copyright. So this whole idea of, well, it's free speech, we should say what we want to say, on every single platform within media, you have to follow certain rules and regulations. But this is what Jimmy Kimmel said. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang, desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. And between the finger pointing, there was grieving on Friday. The White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism, but on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
And he's obviously free to say it.
Will you defend that speech in this country that will defend to the death the speech of others? Will you defend Jimmy Kimmel's speech?
Do I defend Jimmy Kimmel going on television and saying that a shooter from the left...
You defend his right to do so.
He has a right to do so, but he does not have a right to have a television show where he lies his ass off to the American people and attacks half this country on a nightly basis.
Okay, so leave your comments down below how you feel about all of this. Do you think Jimmy Kimmel should have been fired? Do you think he should have just gotten a slap on the wrist, been fined? Let me know how you guys feel about all of this. Now, this is the big argument. The free speech argument that Jimmy Kimmel, he should have never been fired or let go. He should be allowed to say what he wants to say. And on the flip side, others are arguing, well, it has nothing to do with free speech. You work for a company and you said something that's probably not the smartest thing you've ever said, and now advertisers don't feel safe putting their money into this network, such as ABC, and supporting Jimmy Kimmel. Leave your comments down below how you feel about all of this. I will talk about the rules and regulations later in the video. I'll give you guys a little bit of insight and how this stuff works behind the scenes, but let's continue.
Whoa, hold on. Listen, there are plenty of people over on another network that I will not name who lied about the last election, who denigrate half the country every single night. And guess what? They are allowed to do it. Now, the question is, Scott, is the government...
By their company. It's their business decision.
Hold on.
Now, obviously, she's talking about Fox News, but I do find it a little interesting why she won't just say Fox News. I don't want to assume, but I think we can make an educated guess. Anything you say on television to make such an accusation, that is free speech, but there could be some consequences to your actions, such as comparing the Charlie Kirk shooter to the MAGA voter base.
But is the government supposed to be punishing people for the speech that they don't like? Is that the role of the government in your mind?
The government is not punishing them. This was not a government decision. Ultimately, Disney made a decision. Ultimately, CBS made a decision earlier this year. You all are blaming the government.
We keep willfully ignoring.
That's your opinion. That's your opinion about their business motivations.
No one at ABC.
All right, well.
Okay, so let me clear up some confusion. Why are there people arguing the government shut down Jimmy Kimmel? It was Donald Trump. It was J.D. Vance. Well, this is why you're hearing that. Basically, the argument is that Jimmy Kimmel was fired because there was pressure from the FCC, there was pressure from Donald Trump, thus ABC had no choice but to fire Jimmy Kimmel. So just to give you a basic idea as to why you're hearing it's the government's fault, that's what's going on. However, there have been no statements that Jimmy Kimmel has been fired because of the US government or the FCC. Nothing at all from ABC or Disney, just to clear that up.
Look, again, broadcast TV is different. We're on a cable show right now. You don't have an FCC license. You don't have an obligation to serve the public interest. Podcasts don't either. Stand-up comedians, whether they're on lots of forms of communications, don't. And Kimmel is free to do that. But if you have a broadcast TV license, that means that you have something that very few people have. And you're excluding other people from having access to that valuable public resource. And it comes with an obligation to serve the public interest. And again, over the years, there's been a rule in place at the FCC that local TV stations get to preempt programming that they don't think meets the needs of their communities. But recently, these national programmers, ABC, Disney, Comcast, NBC, they've been exercising outsized control and power.
So here's the thing. Jimmy Kimmel himself, he's not a public servant, and he doesn't hold the FCC license. However, ABC does hold an FCC license, which means whatever they broadcast on television or anywhere they want to broadcast, whoever is on the screen or the airwaves, whatever they say, could affect ABC and their FCC license. However, I do want to make this clear. You still have freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want to say, but the FCC also has the right to revoke your license and to even implement some fines. I mean, just ask Howard Stern. He only has about $2.5 million in FCC fines, and I will even say there are times where it looked like the FCC was just hunting him down, but nonetheless, the point I'm trying to make is Howard Stern was free to say whatever he wants to say, freedom of speech. And by the way, Jimmy Kimmel and Howard Stern, they consider themselves close friends, so maybe they just never talked about the FCC fines, but I do want to point this out. Jimmy was close to somebody who holds the record for the most FCC fines and all of these penalties, even under freedom of speech.
Local TV stations, and there's been no pushback. And this is a very significant moment because local broadcasters are now pushing back on national programmers for the first time that I can think of in modern history. And that's one of the things we want at the FCC. We want to empower local broadcasters that have the public interest obligation to push back on national programmers so that people have more choice.
And that's the thing. These local broadcasters, they don't have the money that ABC has. They rely on ABC and these big networks to have great programming so the money can fuel down to the local broadcasters. So again, the FCC, although it sounds highly restrictive, and I will say there are times where the FCC, they will penalize you for some things that I don't agree with, but the point I'm trying to make is this is to protect everyone, to make sure everyone is safe. And look, Jimmy Kimmel, even though he didn't have the FCC license, he was operating under a pretty restrictive license that protects the broadcasters and protects the business that comes with broadcasting, the money needed to fuel the broadcasting. Okay, look, Jimmy Kimmel has a lot of supporters. It's not only people hating on Jimmy Kimmel or they're excited he's been let go. Let's go ahead and look into the Jimmy Kimmel supporters.
Jimmy Kimmel.
And by the way, this is Don Lemon, who was let go from CNN, just so you guys are aware.
Kimmel, they're trying to cancel Jimmy Kimmel. I'm sure you've heard the news by now. But I've been going through the internet looking for the clips to see what they're mad or upset about, and I can't find it. I can't find it. The one that they have on there, I don't see where that's even controversial. The guy's a comedian. This is the same party, the same group of people who complained about everything is too woke. Comedians can't say anything anymore. They're killing comedy. The folks who are complaining about killing comedy are killing comedy. The folks who are complaining about canceling people are canceling people.
Now, as somebody who really enjoys comedy, I love stand-up comedy. I mean, Norm Macdonald, Gilbert Gottfried, Roseanne Barr. There are so many comedians who have been canceled, but canceled in the sense of advertisers don't feel comfortable with working with these people. I think it was Gilbert Gottfried. He was the one who did the Aflac. He's that guy. He did the duck. He made a joke about the tsunami over in Southeast Asia. Of course they're going to let him go because many people did not feel comfortable with that joke. But again, it's not that comedy has been killed. We're talking about a business executive decision here. But I'm just trying to show you guys, some people are making this about comedy, the art of free speech and comedy, and you guys can leave your comments down below how you feel about that.
What does that tell you? That they don't believe in anything that they're saying, that they've said, that they have no core.
I think Dave Chappelle was also technically canceled, right?
All it is if it doesn't fit their particular ideology or belief, then they don't want to hear it. And that's the moment that we're in now. This is a very dangerous and scary moment for America.
Okay, so I'm about to play you guys a clip. I just thought about it in my head, but I think it's very fitting. We're going to play a Charlie Kirk clip, which has to do with South Park.
Said about this, but we need to have a good spirit about being made fun of. This is all a success. This is all a win. We as conservatives, we have thick skin, not thin skin. And you can make fun of us. It doesn't matter. And until next time, I hope all of you also become master debaters.
So whenever somebody tries to say, well, Republicans, conservatives, they're trying to take down comedy, let us remember just a few weeks ago, Charlie Kirk was the one promoting the South Park episode, wanted conservatives to watch it, and does not want people canceled. He even said we need to be able to make fun of ourselves, we should have thick skin. So the whole trying to cancel comedy argument, it's out there. I'm just trying to show you guys it's out there, but when it comes to the Charlie Kirk side of things and Charlie Kirk supporters, I don't know if that's really an accurate argument.
Go ahead.
I'm interested because are they sending everyone home? You know, what's happening on the scene? You know, the show would have been taping within the next hour, so people would be there. Yes, this is very abrupt, very abrupt.
And this is all about jawboning. It's all about public pressure. You know, actually revoking FCC licenses is extremely difficult. I wrote about this last fall when candidate Donald Trump was talking on the campaign trail about wanting to punish stations by taking away their licenses. And throughout the history of the country, ever since we've had broadcast television, license revocations are extraordinarily rare.
Yes, it is very rare, so what ends up happening is, for a network to not lose the license, they will just get rid of the guy who might ruin the license opportunity for them, such as getting rid of Jimmy Kimmel. Again, you can go look into Brian Stelter's claims, but this is true. It is very rare, and actually rather difficult to get rid of the FCC license, and the ones who hold that license, they don't want to go through that, so it's better for them to just get rid of the guy who might ruin the opportunity to still have the FCC license. And by the way, I actually agree with Brian Stelter. This is a lot of public outrage or a lot of public pressure. That's how all of this works. That's how media works. It's you guys who watch my videos. You guys are the public. And if I say something pretty outrageous or something you don't like, I expect it. And honestly, it would happen. I would get a bunch of dislikes, a bunch of outrage. And look, that could even pressure YouTube to take me down as well.
Once you've got one, you're pretty much guaranteed to keep it.
But I still have the right to say it. It's freedom of speech. But again, the public pressure, that's really what constitutes what happens to a lot of broadcasters, YouTubers, TikTokers. That's how this stuff works.
So the threat is not that the FCC is actually going to take away a license. It's about the public noise. It's about the shame and embarrassment. It's about Brendan Carr going on podcasts and embarrassing ABC. You know, there's a term for this. It's jawboning, and that's what we've seen happen today in a very real way. Trump vowed retribution on the campaign trail, and he's getting it. He's getting it against entertainers and comedians. But Aaron, for every
But there's a big distinction. A handful of people operate under the FCC. A handful. And this is where we make that distinction. When you operate under an FCC, you are held to a different standard.
reaction, there is a counter reaction. Stephen Colbert has already been joking about getting hired somewhere else. Those jokes mask a very real intention, right? Where will he get picked up instead? if Kimmel parts ways with ABC, and again, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Kimmel's contract is coming due soon, Kimmel will probably end up somewhere else. And if big, old-fashioned mainstream media companies don't have the guts to employ these people, then we're going to see startups start to flourish.
Hey, I'm going to be honest with you. On the YouTube side of things, I've never been on TV. Don't ever want to be on TV. On the YouTube side of things, I'm willing to bet it's a lot more restrictive and a little more difficult. No disrespect, Google. I understand 100% why we have standards. We want to protect the viewers. We want to make sure we don't have some craziness going on over here. But let me tell you something. If Jimmy Kimmel or anyone who's been fired wants to come to the independent side, I'm just going to leave it at that. It's a little restrictive at times, and we are held to an extremely, extremely high standard as to what I can say. We are monitored with a lot of stuff, and guess what? I understand it. Google has to make money, and they rely on us, the broadcasters, to make sure we are held at a standard as well. Now, Google, they're not restricting my freedom of speech, but they could restrict if I get paid or not, if I'm going to represent Google in a certain way. So for all of these independent markets who want to come onto the internet, come over to Google, just letting you guys know it's pretty tough over here as well. And look, I actually see it in a good way. We're trying to protect the viewers.
You know, we talk about the Substack era with people launching newsletters and live streams on YouTube. We're going to see more of that if these old-fashioned media companies can't stand a little bit of pressure from the president.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it is stunning to see such a thing happen and to show this world that we're living in. Van Jones is joining me now on the phone. So, Van, all of a sudden you see this headline, Jimmy Kimmel put on hold indefinitely by ABC News after the head of the FCC goes on a far-right podcast and says we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And do you think...
And that's, of course, where the argument comes that it's the government's fault. Now, look, maybe for the first time ever, I am agreeing with Brian Stelter. I do think he's accurate in saying there is so much public pushback, and now you have the president on board. I will say I do think there's some validity that the public has swayed ABC or Disney into a certain direction.
Do you think in your mind it's possible this might not be real?
I don't know what's real or what's not real. I do know that a news organization anywhere in the world has a responsibility to stand up to government bullying, to government censorship. That is what we do.
And by the way, coming from CNN, again, they have been held to a standard as well. They have been sued for some inaccuracy. So they're in the business of knowing what can happen when you go beyond this freedom of speech. There is this sense of you have to be accurate in what you say, and you cannot say things that could defame somebody.
That is why we exist. Not to knuckle under, not to do what we're told, but to stand up and to say, listen, if you want to pull these licenses, then we're going to go to court, and we'll be in the court of public opinion. But you don't get to go on a podcast and set policy for American media, for an American media institution that's been around a lot longer than me, you, or Donald Trump.
And just to show you guys, as YouTubers, we are held to a very, very high standard. Now, I used the word restrictive before, but it's in the sense of like we're restricted to these standards and we have to make sure we're following them to a T so that you guys are protected and the advertisers. Again, it is a lot. So obviously under the FCC, there's going to be a lot as well. But again, I do want to make the point. We have the ability to have this freedom of speech. But in every single aspect of entertainment, broadcasting, anywhere, we are all held to these standards because at the end of the day, it comes down to the advertiser. Do they feel safe in wanting to put an ad on my video? If not, they will just move on. And when Jimmy Kimmel said what he said, this is what it looks like is happening, that advertisers just do not feel safe with putting their ads on the Jimmy Kimmel show when you insult half of the country. Now, speaking of freedoms, we have the freedom to do this. Charlie Kirk wouldn't want me even talking about Charlie Kirk. I think he wants me to talk about the gospel. And for all of the new Christians out there and everyone wondering, what is Christianity all about? We're seeing a massive influx of people get motivated as to what Charlie Kirk believed in. Well, this is going to be the foundation of your faith and salvation. And for people who are Christians, you got to know this. 1 Corinthians 15:1 1 through 4, probably one of the most important verses in the entire Bible. Now I would remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins, in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried, and he was raised on the third day, in accordance with the Scriptures. This is what Charlie Kirk would want us talking about. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really tried to make this a technical, comprehensive video so you can understand all of the arguments. And as somebody who has a film degree and actually had to go through FCC regulations and go through that entire course, finally, for the first time in the history of my college education, I got to use that course for the first time ever for YouTube. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you. God bless, and let's make sure we pray for peace, pray for unity. That's all I ever advocate on this channel, and I really hope we can come together. We don't want violence, we want peace. Thank you guys. God bless, and we'll see you all later.